I think it's really important to have a broad perspective about what happened in our world history in regards to slavery and what's being allowed to happen now. But it's interesting, you get a visceral response when you're holding an object that was once used on another human being. And no one can say this didn't happen, because when you hold a pair of shackles that were meant for a 3-year-old child, because they're smaller, they don't fit on my wrists or ankles, then you can't deny that it was a part of our history. I started making art or making music as my first medium, and I just loved making music. And when I started writing new music, I thought, this is a great way to tell a story. But then a few years later, I decided, what other ways can I tell a story? I mean, what if I combined visual art with music? And that's basically where I got to where I am right now. My process is very improvisatory. I just find objects and I get moved to do something with that object, whether to animate the object or display it in a certain way or duplicate that object in another way, such as the Klan robes. The Klan robe existed, but what I wanted to do was show the evolution of the robe in a stealth aspect of the nature of the Ku Klux Klan, or white supremacy, or ideology around white supremacy. Started making Klan robes because, well, initially wanted to buy one, but it felt kind of strange to buy something and to not really make it your own. I didn't want to buy from one of the living Klan robe makers, because that would be supporting that industry. And buying an older one would not have done much except you just display it. But I always have to ask myself, what are you trying to tell? What story are you trying to tell? So I wanted to start making variations on Klan robes, and those were used in the show Rewind. And for the piece Storm in the Time of Shelter, I felt there were many robes that I left out of the discussion before. And so I felt like there was a broader brush I could make by creating more colors and more patterns with the robes, and to be able to tell a story in which basically systemic and structural racism is in every aspect of what we do. Someone said that every songwriter has 7 great songs and everything else is a theme and variation on that. I think Storm in the Time of Shelter was a variation off of Rewind. It was a piece that broke off and one needed to expand even larger. And the artifacts that I was collecting for that show, which are now part of the VMFA, are really important because they tell where America was 100 years ago when the Klan had 5 million active members. That was 5% of the US population at the time. And when you think about it, 5 million people was the same population of New York City at the time as well. So that tells you how many active Klansmen there were in the country. And that doesn't even include the 500,000 women that were had their own auxiliary based in Little Rock, Arkansas. So a lot of the documents tell the rise of the Klan, the ideology that they used, and the tactics of using the media to bolster their case for segregation. Now, the regular Klan, they made a lot of money from robe sales. So you think about 5 million members across the country. Klan Robe Factory in the Buckhead neighborhood of Georgia had to keep 20,000 robes on hand at all times to keep up with demand. And it wasn't just a basic white robe. They had different colors for different ranking within the KKK. My robes don't have different rankings, but they just have different meanings. If you look at the kente cloth one, which a lot of people talk about, it's actually wax fabric kente cloth, which is a product of Dutch colonization. And the robe actually has to do with Nathan Bedford Forrest, who was the first Grand Wizard of the Klan in the 1800s. He was a millionaire slave trader, and he made millions in cotton sales as well. And he's the first Grand Wizard of the Klan. And a lot of people don't link the Klan with cotton sales or the wealth of the country, but there's a direct correlation with all these things, because the generals that got together, and Nathan Bedford Forrest was a general, along with some other generals, got together and they organized the Klan. And when you have this recently freed black population, they'll figure out, what are we going to do with this population? There's a robe there that has an Asian pattern, this purple robe, and that has to do with Asian people that the Klan did not like as well. If you look at groups of people that the Klan did not like, it was basically, blacks, Jews, Asian, and Irish. Basically anyone that wasn't, Catholic as well. It did not like Catholic. Anyone that wasn't white Protestant was put in that category. And there were some robes for each of those things alluding in the show as well. One other piece, there's a couple of pieces that show decadence and wealth. And those pieces are really to symbolize the wealth that was created during chattel slavery. Chattel slavery meaning slaves as property. If you have cotton sales alone in 1860 equal $200 million. This is census data that I researched and got from 1860 when the census was taken, because it counted everything, property, including slaves, cotton, gin, what came into the country, what came out. So cotton sales alone in 1860 equal $200 million. That would equal $5 billion today. So these robes tell that story of the wealth that was created that you can still see evidence of today, even on Miami Avenue and other parts of Richmond. The reason, my motivation for the research is to better understand this entity and organization and how influential it is today. And one of the things that is important when I think an artist shows or presents is nobody wants to be told how to think. I basically can only present, what some people say, the evidence, or present my argument or in the form of just information. But I tend not to say what my intention is as far as how I would like for anyone to think. Because I think if you want to be genuine in your arrival, you really have to get there on your own, as opposed, once you figure out the answer on your own, as opposed to someone telling you, the answer stays with you. So I'm hoping that, obviously people will take something away, but I also understand that everyone brings their own stuff to an art show, good and bad or indifferent. And I think it's really important to honor each individual's experience when they come to see the show. And some people may not like it at first, but then they'll come back and visit 5 more times. And I've had that happen. And I think the most amazing thing about people and growth is their ability to grow, especially when they get older. Some people love my work, some people don't like my work, but that's okay, and they're both valid.